Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Monique McWhite. I'm the director of the Business Development Center at Old Dominion University. We are we help businesses that are starting. We're nascent. We're helping businesses that want to scale their business to include federal government, local municipalities, local levels, as well as the corporate side. So even if you just need help with marketing your business, we're here to help. And today we have a very, very special guest, Tim Hagerty with Teaming Pro. He has a wonderful software system that I've been using that it has been invaluable for me to help my clients find opportunities that resonate with them, that really fit the bill, and helping them with teaming. So I know we only have an hour and I don't want to talk too much. I want to give the floor over to Tim because he has a lot of content and I look forward to learning as well. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Tim. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Monique. Hi. Good morning. My name is Tim Hagerty. I'm the CEO, founder of Teaming Pro. Although I will say that this webinar here is not about our software. We actually like to do things like this. We have a pretty deep background in terms of federal contracting. I'll go over our background in just a little bit. What we're going to go over today is a strategy. It's really for small businesses, although pretty much anyone can utilize it, but it's really utilizing the small business office. And ultimately, at the end of the strategy, if it's followed through all the way through and done successfully, of course, right, you should have the end result should be a meeting that you're able to set up with either a major prime or a major sub, right, within the doing work with that small business office. So whatever government agency that you guys are targeting. All right. So the end of this is should get you that, which means that then, of course, once you get that meeting, once you get that introduction, it's a very strong introduction because it's coming from the government side, and should yield fruit, really. So like helping you get your subcontracting portfolio running more, some more subcontract work with a really good connection there. So once again, good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tim Hagerty. You'll see my cohort, Kate Sornick over here. At least she's to my left when I look at the Zoom thing. We are part of Teaming Pro. I'm the CEO of Teaming Pro. Kate is one of our business development leads. And of course, at the end of this, if you ever have any questions, you can please visit us at teamingpro.com. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. Let me give you a little background as to me, as to why you might even why is it worth listening to this guy when it talks about this stuff? So I have about 19 years in the federal space, going on 20. Started out on the government side, actually. So I used to be GS-13, actually right down there, Naval Station, Norfolk. Monique, I'm not even sure if I told you that during our history, but used to be GS-13, went private, been in the federal space for that long, building big systems as well as working business development. So obsessed about business development where we actually built a system that automates it. That's what Teaming Pro is. So if you ever want to find any other contractor in the market, that's a platform to be able to do that. But please, once again, this is not about our software. What we want to do is go into the strategy to get you guys rolling. Hopefully, everyone on the call is a small business in the state of Virginia, right? Please know that Monique's group can help any small business within the state of Virginia. It's almost like a PTAC-esque thing, although it's not PTAC. But they are there to help you find opportunities, find teammates, help, and it's all free. So it's just something. If you don't know Monique, she's a great person to know. Great group. Okay. Now with that, do we have any kind of questions or anything, Kate, that we need to get out of the way first, or do we just dive right in?
I think you can dive right in.
Okay. All right. Hey, and by the way, if you have questions along the way, we have an hour, so we really should be able to get into a lot of the nuances of this. Okay. So if you have any questions, please shoot them up in the chat. Kate's going to monitor the actual chat. Okay. All right. So without further ado, let me go ahead and let me share my screen and we're going to get everything rolling. Do you see my web page here? Kate, good?
Yes, sir. I see it.
Okay. All right. All right. So we have an article that's on our website. Everyone can actually get to this, and you can reference it. I would recommend referencing it for the links when you go back into it, because the links are actually going to be pretty good. But we're not going to start or spend too much time in the beginning, other than you guys should know as a small business, when it comes down to it, less and less small businesses are winning primes. There's more dollars flowing into the federal space for small business, but a lot of this has been subcontract work, which is okay. I just want you guys to be aware that like we have less and less small businesses winning prime work. That's a report that's in the series of links here. I actually think it's this June report here, bolstered by an SBA report as well. It's just something to keep in mind, but that's not really going to be the focus of the content here. The content here is going to be this. Okay, so hopefully you guys, being state of Virginia based companies, and hopefully you are service based companies. This kind of strategy might work for companies that are selling products. That's okay, but I will tell you that this is really geared more towards service based businesses, right? So whatever kind of service you're offering or whatever you're selling within the federal market, if you're service-based, this will be a good one for you. If you happen to have any of those set-asides that happen to be in front of you now, 8A, SDVO, women-owned, hub zone, and then most likely everyone on this call probably knows about the 23%, right? The government gives out 23% of their work essentially to small businesses. That's how it flows down. All gets broken out differently, but it's because of that we're able to implement this strategy here. So starting at that 23%, okay. If you have a government agency, let's just say, I don't know if the majority of the guys in the call here are Hampton Roads or not, but let's just say you're going after the Navy, right? You're going to want to focus on the small business offices for a particular government agency. You can't eat the whole world, so I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend branching that out too much, but if you want to stick with a particular government agency, like the Navy's good because they got multiple small business offices, that's where you're going to start, okay? Now, to find the small business offices, you can go through various SBA links. We have some links on here as well too, which will help you get there. We don't have a direct link that's actually going to show you all the small business offices. You're going to have to do a little bit of research to find the small business guys on the government side, but that's okay. It won't take much, right? Once you find them, okay, this is going to be the next step. Now, please keep in mind, I believe that I'm speaking to federal contracting companies that are between 1 and 3 years in business, maybe 1 and 5 years at the most, okay? So if any of the respondents on the call here have more experience than that, please bear with me because some of the stuff will be a little bit more 101 for you, but we got to talk about it. We got to get it out of the way. So number one, capability statement. You guys got to have your capability statement. It really shouldn't be more than 2 pages. Really, please try to keep it at 1, okay? If you can, a nice single page, okay? Really highlight your capabilities. If you're woman-owned, if you're 8A, if you're hub zone, of course, you want it all on there. All the NAICS codes that you support. Please indicate whether you're a small business in those NAICS codes. You should have that from your SAM record, right? That's a big deal. That's one of the things that they look at. And please make sure that you have your capability narrative. This is another thing that these small business offices look at, which, by the way, with our platform, we have a lot of experience. Yes. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Was there a question? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so we actually have a lot of experience working with larger primes because we sell our software subscription service to larger primes because they use us to find you guys, right? And so we talk a lot with these primes. One of the biggest things that they look for when they're looking at small businesses is the capability narrative. Now, this comes out of your SBA record. So I don't know if you've all have ever used the DSBS or the Dynamic Small Business Search, but a lot of the primes use that search. They try to find small businesses through that qualification. With that, one of the big things they're looking at is your capability narrative. If you can make sure that's on your capability statement, it's a big deal, all right? Because that really helps them narrow down what kind of business you are. Does it make sense for them? All of that kind of stuff. It's one of the top line discriminators, okay? So capability statement. If you don't have one, this is another reason why it's so great to work with groups like the one that Monique represents, or if you happen to have a PTAC in your area, right? They will help you formulate your capability statement. Depending on however many resources that particular office has. If you don't want to go through an office, you can check out, there's a link there for Fiverr. I don't know if you all have ever heard that or not. It's just one of those gig sites. You can get some pretty decent stuff out of it. It won't cost you much money. It'll maybe cost you, it's called Fiverr, but maybe it'll cost you 30, 35 bucks. 50 bucks at the most for a capability statement with that kind of thing is like top line. And it should be everything that you want. If you spend 15 to 20 bucks, you're going to get something somewhat decent, but things like Fiverr will help you do that. Okay. So I hope I nailed that down home enough, because this is something you're going to be sending out a lot, right? Capability statements, please make sure it's good. Please make sure it has good data on it that's relevant, so you, the people that are looking at it can get to the information that they need to get to quickly. That's part and parcel with how this strategy works too. I mean, by the way, so let me just back up just for a quick second. So small business offices, right? The vast majority, and I've spoken to, I can't even remember how many counselors at small business offices. This is where all of this is coming from. This is all on the government side. The vast majority of small businesses, when they come at the small business office, the way they do it is they say, hey, they send an email, I'm a woman-owned small business, we do blah, 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 right? Which makes sense. Like you would think that that would make sense from a small business perspective. But if you think of it from the small business office perspective, what are we asking them to do? Like put yourself in their position, right? Whereas like you just got this email, it might be a fantastic company that came at you, right? But they're woman-owned and they do this. How are you going to help them? You know, like coming at a small business office in that way puts more work on them. Now, these offices, they are historically undermanned. They do not have large budgets. You're going to find the exact same thing, not only on the government side, but also on the large prime side. We work with SAIC. Rita Brooks runs is essentially the small business office. She has a couple of people that will help her out, but SAIC has like a single office for small business. They funnel a ton through there, but we have to be aware that that's how this kind of thing works, right? So what we're going to do is through this strategy, make things as easy and simple on the side of the government small business office to where it's going to make you stand out, and they are going to give you that introduction or recommend you, get you that next level to that major prime or sub. Okay, so this is how we're going to work through all the nuances of being able to do that. All right, so historically undermanned, always overwhelmed small business offices. That's how it works. Okay, so you don't want to come at them and, hey, I'm a woman-owned and we do this, because it's too much work. Last thing I'll say about this, these people, they're dedicated. The small business offices are usually manned with personnel that care. Like they actually really, really want to do a good job because they take small business stuff seriously. I was talking with the Department of Education just last week. I mean, it's the same deal, historically undermanned, but a lot of work that they try to funnel through. And it just struck me how dedicated these personnel are. They want to help you, but let's make it easy. All right. So in order for us to make it easy for them, this is what we're going to do. Notice here in step 2, research their acquisition schedule. Now this, Kate, if I could get you to put out the link, that last link in that list that I sent you, that's the acquisition procurement forecast link.
Sure. I put it in the chat, so it will be the last link in the chat, and it's acquisition.gov.
That will help you get started. That's a link that gets you to the acquisition schedules for a couple of the major agencies. If the ones that you're looking to support are not there, you're just going to have to search and find, but everyone has an acquisition schedule. Okay. These are opportunities or recompete contracts that are coming down the pike, usually within the next 18 months for that particular government office, right? So let's just say that you're looking to support Navy, Military SEAL of Command or something, right? You would want to find the acquisition schedule for the Military SEAL of Command, see what's coming down the pike for the next 18 months. That's really step number 2. Step number 1, you're going to have your capability statement ready to go. But once that's done, right? So really the first step in this particular process or for this strategy, check out the acquisition schedule. Find something on there that you can actually support. That falls in line with your capabilities. You're going to have to read it. But there usually aren't a super ton, and the titles will kind of guide you down to the kinds of ops that make sense, right? So you don't have to spend your whole day necessarily, but you're going to want to check it out. You're going to want to also highlight the title of the acquisition, highlight the part of the acquisition that you can lend value to, right? So like in this section, A/B or point 1, 2, 3, you have this requirement and this requirement. We feel like we can really help you. So you just want to have that at the ready, right? And so once you do this, then the contact information for the small business office is going to be like everywhere. It won't be hard to find the email and or the phone number for this person. What you're going to want to do first, okay? You don't call them first, because that's just a tiny bit heavy-handed. They don't know you. You don't know them yet, okay? This is a warming up kind of process, right? To where what you're going to want to do is send them an email first, okay? Keep in mind, they're overwhelmed. Offices, it might take a couple of days to get back to you, so just keep that in mind when you're doing this, okay? But notice down here where we have this section, hey, I see you have this acquisition, and then, you know, like you actually paste it in there. I will tell you, these offices, especially the small business liaison officers, are usually intimately familiar with everything that's in their acquisition pipeline, because that's their job, is to make sure that they get enough small businesses to help with that, right? Okay, so when you make references in this way, especially a contract number, reference number, or anything like that, probability is very high that they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. So what you're going to be able to do here in this, when you reach out to them in this first email, you can reference where you can add value to one of their acquisitions or more if you can, but don't want to overwhelm. At least one, good. You're going to want to send your capability statement as an attachment in that email, okay? And then nice and short and sweet, very concise. Don't even mention off the bat, hey, we're a woman, I'm doing, you say, we see you have this acquisition. We have these capabilities. By the way, we're a woman-owned small business, 8A, HubZone, whatever, you know, and we would love to set up a time to go over some of these requirements to see how we can help, right? Give that a couple days, okay? That email within itself, you're going to want to, like, you know, the subject for it, you're going to want to put maybe the contract number, something unique and specific, you know, that's going to make that stand out. You are going, if you follow that, you are going to stand out from every other small business that ever has really come at them. The vast majority of small businesses do not do this kind of legwork up front. So you want to take full advantage, right, of being able to stand out. You want that. So with that, make sure the subject is on point, right? Talking or the referencing contract acquisition schedule, blah, 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 you know, like something that's on point that they're going to recognize, and number is always good. A nice little short email with an introduction to like high level show, you have these requirements coming down, we have these capabilities. And then if you happen to have certifications, by the way, we are a woman-owned, we're 8A. We would love to speak with you, set up a Zoom call. Nice and easy, like single point of action. We'd love to set up a call. If you could say Zoom call, even better. Please keep in mind, a lot of these guys are on base. They might not be able to have Zoom. I think Zoom has gotten better in terms of their security protocols, but I know for a while, Zoom kind of dropped off if you were on base. If that's the case, please have WebEx ready. WebEx can normally get into the, you know, behind the firewalls. All right. So with that, you want to have a nice, clean, easy, like, would love to set up a call. If you could say Zoom call, WebEx call, whatever. If you can narrow that down even more, basically you're taking even more thinking or thought out of the process that they would have to do. Okay, what kind of call are we going to set? You know, stuff like that. If you can even get to that level, make it as easy as possible. They should respond to you within 2, maybe 3 days. If they don't, that's when you give them a call. Okay, this is the follow-up right here. Now, please, and don't feel bad if they don't get back to you within 2 or 3 days. They really are overwhelmed. I mean, they really do take on a lot of responsibility at the same time too. They have their commanders, they have like everyone else on their hierarchy coming at them saying, hey, we need more small businesses for this, right? And I mean, so they actually have a lot of pressure, while at the same time, they have a lot of small businesses saying, hey, we do this, so they have a lot to sift through. So if you don't get a response in 2 to 3 days, it's okay. But it does warrant a phone call. And here is the other trick. If it could be the CEO, everyone here is a small business, right? If it could be the owner, who both sends the email, right, which is okay, or the owner doesn't have to send the email, but a high-ranking person should at least be sending the email, let's just say. But if the owner follows that up with a phone call, that makes the small business liaison officer extremely happy. They love speaking with the owners because it proves to them, to a certain point, that you guys have skin in the game, like you're serious. Like having the owner reach out saying, hey, we're trying to get in touch based on this acquisition and all, that's a big deal. They actually want to see that. And you should take full advantage of that as well too. All right. So the follow-up, give it 2-3 days, call them. If you don't get your email back, if you get an email back, then it should be like, hey, great, let's set up a Zoom call. Awesome, right? But if not, follow that up and try to follow up with the owner. Okay. Now, with all that said, what you want to do is you think about what you've done so far. You've separated or you differentiated your business, basically, right, from everyone else in the crowd, how they come at them. You showed that you researched their acquisition, so it shows that you care about their stuff. Now, this is like the other, it's just really cool how we all work in terms of like buying and selling in society and all that stuff, right? The small business liaison officer, the most important thing in their world are those acquisitions. They have to get more qualified small businesses to help with their acquisition. The most important thing in their world, right? So you talk to them about that, it's a big deal, right? I mean, just, if you think about what's the most important thing in your world for your business, right? If someone talks to you about that, it's a big deal, kind of sets things apart, right? So you want that. And so with all that said, you should be getting this meeting. Now, if they don't come back to you at all, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe they're like super busy. Maybe they don't think that what you're saying in terms of value that you can add to the acquisition is accurate. Whatever. All right. But like you actually want to have that as on point as possible, right? Because think about what you're doing. You're trying to separate your business out. This is a business differentiator. You're trying to get in front of the right person. You want to say the right things because you want to instill trust. I mean, any one of us that are buying and selling anything in this, and this happens to be the federal market, but really, like when it comes down to it, is business, right? There really is no difference between our industry and, like, say, you can plop us into a whole nother industry. Essentially, the framework and the building blocks are the exact same thing. We have to build trust. We have to connect with the right people. We have to essentially pitch, and then we have to go win work, and then we have to pivot and change based on things that we notice about how maybe we come at certain things. We do things better. We find out something. It's a normal business process, right? I mean, there's no difference. It just happens to be the federal market. But in this case, if you can impress a small business liaison officer, which, by the way, that's what all this is leading up to, right? Because you show that you research them, you care about their stuff, you came at them in a very professional way. And then once you get that meeting, then that's when you take over. You as the owner, there's a reason why you have a business, right? There's a reason why you started. It's kind of funny. Like I've been doing this for quite a while, and I'm a big data guy. So I see all the data for like essentially the entire federal contracting market, right? And so a whole lot of our small business owners here came from very successful careers, either on the military side or as a government contracting or on the private side, right? For the businesses, larger businesses. But you have a niche, you have a specialty, you started a business based on that. So you guys are experts in that kind of stuff. And so when it comes down to it, the vast majority of us are experts in our business, right? Not experts in business development. And this is one of the hardest things, because we can have the greatest product or service in the world, but if we don't have anyone buying it, then it's not really helping us out, right? So this is one way for us to be able to do that. If you follow the strategy, which by the way is completely free, like everything we talked about so far, you don't have to spend a dime other than your capability statement, but you're going to want that anyway. Like you really want a good one. Actually, and this kind of goes beyond this a little bit, but really what you want to have multiple capability statements. Because when you go after, if you're going after something with the Navy, right, you should have a Navy-centric capability statement. Almost everything's going to be the same, but you're going to shift it a little bit to gear a little bit more towards that particular government customer. If you're going after Army work, then you might consider having one that's geared towards the Army, NASA, space, whatever, right? That's what you ultimately want to work up to, but one to start off is fine. Okay, all right, so you followed this through. We went ahead and we got ourselves a meeting. You're either on a Zoom call, WebEx call, phone call, or something with the small business liaison officer. Okay, so what do you say now, right? All right, so all the research you did before, you just want to have it laid out in front of you. That's all. You want to be able to reference them pretty quickly. Okay. Hey, we noticed you have this. Talk about the specifics, the little nuances of like how it is that you can help them, like really add value. Like when it comes down to that particular contract, we do this. We have great past performance. You know what I mean? Like you really sell it. You're gonna have to sell it, but you guys all know that, right? So what you're going to do on that phone call, it's a culmination of everything that you did all the way up to that point, which should leave the small business liaison officer impressed. Okay, which means that now, because what we want them to do is put their reputation on the line and recommend you to one of their favorites. Shouldn't really use the word favorite, but that's essentially how it comes down. It's one of their favorite, either major primes or major subcontractors. And now this is really, really interesting, right? You see, because the small business, the liaison officer wants to protect their reputation. They can't recommend someone who's going to drop the ball. One, right? So think about that. That's what their number one worry is, outside of, do I have enough small businesses in order to go and get all of this work done, right? But they don't want to pass along someone that's not going to add value or be beneficial. So you doing all this work up to this point, you sped up the process, number one, and you did all the right things to impress them, which means that they should be, now this is where the conversation comes in. When you actually have the conversation, that's what's going to seal it, right? And if they like you and they really think that you can do the job that you're talking about here, that's what it comes down to, then they are going to take the next step and say, okay, I'm going to go contact XYZ here at one of our companies and see if we can set you up, right? So, but that's them putting their reputation on the line. If you really, really think about it, it's a big, big deal, you see, and because it's not a normal introduction. So I'm running my business, and let's say that Lisa is there running her business, and I recommend Lisa to Boeing, right? Because Boeing's one of our customers, right? Of course, I'm not going to do that until I know that Lisa is going to sit there and, she's the kind of business owner that just knocks it out of the park, right? And like does a good job, because then I'm more comfortable doing it. Because it took me a while to build up that reputation with Boeing. I don't want to ruin it, right? The exact same thing happens with these small business offices. Even though they're government, they have longstanding relationships with their longstanding contractors, okay? Now, this is why this powerful, or this strategy is so good. It's because it's not just a normal recommendation, just like if I went to Boeing with like Lisa, that's Tim talking to Boeing or whatever, it's great. But in this case, these are government relationships with private companies, serious private companies that obviously know how to win, right? And they're most likely going to be doing more than one contract or working on more than one contract with that particular office, because that's how a lot of these things. If you see the same data that I see, then you see patterns like that, right? Where like you have these companies that are almost embedded, right? You are getting an introduction to one of them. So that right there, it's almost worth its weight in gold. You see, all you got to do at that point, now working this whole thing up all the way from beginning all the way to end, all you really have to do at that point is impress that major prime or that major sub. doing saying the exact same things that got you through the first gate, which was the small business office, right? So you don't have to even change it up or anything like that. You just talk about your capabilities and how it is that you can help. And all right, so the private side, they have to take that meeting because they do not want to disappoint their government customer. The government customer side will be happy to set up that meeting because they feel that you're going to be a company that is going to get the job done, and it helps protects their reputation. It shows that they did their due diligence and checked you out, and you came at the whole thing properly, and really made it very easy for the small business liaison to make that introduction. But that kind of introduction is really worth its weight in gold because you're dealing with a major prime or a major sub that knows how to win. They know how to price for that agency, which is a very, very big deal. You can either get on current contracts with them now, depending on how you negotiated and work with it, and depending on whatever the need is, right? But you have the possibility of getting on current contracts now. You also have an extremely strong possibility of getting on further teams, right? Or getting on that winner's team when it comes down to when the recompete is coming out. And you already know what the acquisitions are going to be, right? One of the other really good things is when you're dealing with a company at that level, a lot of the times they spread across agencies. So if you can open up the door to a relationship that is dealing with a major prime or a major sub that supports, let's just say it starts at the Navy, but let's say they have contracts with Air Force and Army and Health and Human Services or whatever else, you have a ready-made series of doors that you can walk through, right? Depending, and based on that relationship that you can set up through this particular strategy. When it comes down to time, it'll be up to you as to how long. I think, of course, there's some factors that we have no control over. How long will it take for the major sub or the major prime to set up the actual call? I can tell you everything within this strategy should be accelerated. If it takes like a month or whatever to get that meeting with that major prime or major sub, something's a little bit off. It really shouldn't take more than 2-3 weeks at the most, okay? To get in with the small business office, it's going to depend on what's happening at that particular time, all of that, so some stuff will be out of your control, but most of it will be within it. This is the other thing as well too, depending on your who you're looking to support as customers, right? In this particular case, we're talking about one small business office. There's no reason why you can't do this 3 or 4 or 5 of those guys all at the same time. I don't think it's going to make you busy, but it'll keep things interesting too. And then also if you do it like that, then you're playing the numbers, right? So let's just say you target 5. What if you get in and then get the meeting with 2, maybe 3? Even if you got 2, incredible. I mean, think about how much work can come out of that kind of thing. All right, and so now with that, and just please, once again, bear with me. If you've been in the market for quite a while, I'm sure you already know this, but I really am speaking to more of the newer companies that are coming into the market or competing in the market. Our industry, our federal contracting industry, it all runs on relationships. Like there, and it's so interesting if you ask that question or make that statement all the way from the top down, even on the government side to the major primes, all the way down to the subs that have one work. Everyone nods their head, and ultimately it's yes. It all comes down to relationships. That's how our industry works. It really is who you know, and ultimately who knows you too, right? But that's what you're doing here. You are setting up a connection, which then you want to turn that into a relationship. That's all it really comes down to. Since we're an industry that is driven by relationships, I say, this is one of the other reasons why we built Teaming Pro, I say that the more you have, the more business you can ultimately do. And if you look at it as almost like a numbers game, I think that's a good way to look at it, depending on what it is that you provide in terms of service or like what it is that you're selling into the federal market with. But the more connections you have, the more relationships you can build, which means the more work that you can win. That's how our industry runs. And so there's no way around that. And that'll never change. So this is a really, really good, solid strategy. Won't cost you any money. You just got to identify a couple of different things. One, which government agency makes sense for you. How you got to research their acquisition schedule, right? You got to know what it is that they care about. You got to be able to point out how it is that you can support them, come at them in the right way, reach out to them properly, follow up properly. And then, but if you do it, and then if you do it a couple of times, then you will get those introductions. And then you will make those kinds of connections, which then you can turn into those kinds of relationships. You know, it's really, really interesting how our whole industry works, right? To where it's like, it all comes down to these relationships where it's like, you know, because we're an industry of, I don't know if you all know this or not, but like normally historically, we would be running about 600,000 companies at any given time in the federal space, right? In the last year with COVID, it's kind of crazy. We now have an average of about 730,000 companies within the federal market at any given space, right? Or phase. So we had a lot of brand new companies coming into the market. Everyone's going after dollars when it comes down to it, contract dollars in some way, right? Carving out a niche in some way, possibly. And all of that is great. All of that is fine. But just knowing that it's the relationships that makes everything churn. So with small businesses, this is one of the other reasons why we like to do things like this. Is that if we can get more small businesses to get more connections. Now, I'm not talking about our software or any of that kind of stuff, but strategies just like this, building out your portfolio with, you know, just doing the work really. Then we'll have more small businesses sticking around within the federal market. I mean, because I'll tell you that the percentage of companies that come in and go out, especially within the first year, it's kind of staggering. It sort of makes sense, but our industry, I mean, it's cutthroat, right? We all know that. But at the same time, it's so big, right? Because 600,000 to 730,000 average at any given time. While at the same time, this is what I found so interesting about it. It's so big and large, and I don't know if you guys ask yourself the same questions, but I know when I was working business development, I was asking who should I be connecting with now? You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's interesting to think that we're such a large industry, but so hard essentially to find the right people. But with something like this will drive you to absolutely the right people. If you can hook up with companies that know how to win, right? And I think if they know how to price, that is extremely important, right? You know, because if you can garner a relationship with a company like that, it obviously should be profitable. I mean, the only thing you really got to worry about at that point is how are you going to negotiate your teaming agreements and what kind of work share are you going to pull out of it? Especially if you have those set asides. If you're an 8A, if you're woman owned, if you're a hub zone, or if you're an SDVO, you're sort of in the lion's seat, right? Or you know, because the bigger guys, like in this particular case, you would get an introduction. Let's just say it's a major sub, right? And they, they're gonna be priming things as they go. That's why they're a major sub, because they're gonna be a sub on this particular contract or whatever, but they're gonna be priming other stuff, right? So they have the small business concerns in the same way any prime does, and so they actually have a really good incentive to find more companies that they like to work with. But the big problem there is that it's kind of hard to find them ultimately. So this is a way to get in front of the right people. Hopefully got a good capability statement, right? That'll really set you out with the nice, easy things that you know that they want to see off the bat. Capability narrative, I really can't drive that point home enough. Please make sure that that's out there. Your NAICS codes also, please spell out the description for those NAICS codes. Not everyone is as up on the description for the NAICS codes themselves. So when you put them on your capability statement, if you can find the space to make sure it has the number plus the description of what it is, that'll really help, okay? I don't know if you all might know this or not too, but your PSC codes, your capabilities, reach down into PSC codes, right? So on your SAM record, you choose your PSC codes, and that's your capability stuff. You're going to want that on your capability statement as well, too, because every one of these contract wins, like in the strategy that we're going over here, you are reaching down. It's most likely going to be a recompete contract, which means that it has a NAICS code and it has a PSC code. And so that's one of the first little discriminators that they're going to look at when it comes down to finding subcontractors for certain kind of work. Can they support this? Do they have these capabilities? And they're going to look at your NAICS and they're going to look at your PSC. So you're just going to want it on there, right? And that's actually one of the things that you would look at when you're looking to figure out which opportunities in their acquisition schedules make sense for you. That's one of the first ways, if you wanted to, you can narrow down by the codes that they had previously awarded them under, because then that'll make sense. Like, okay, do you have capabilities that fit into this, or do you have kind of past performance that can help support it, right? Now, so what this is going to do is this should get you onto teams to where you can start building up your past performance. That's what the whole subcontracting thing is all about, right? Like, you just want to pile on that past performance, like as much as you possibly can. If you're like an 8A, right? Let's just say, and like you need, and because like you ultimately want to build up your prime portfolio, right? But you can't really get there until you get to past performance. So you use strategies like this, get on teams, build up that subcontracting past performance. Ultimately, when you're able to compete, then you can start to prime. If you're 8A, then you have an expiration date on your certification, right? Where it's like you really want to start hammering that kind of thing home within the last couple of years of your cert before you have to start competing full and open, right? Necessarily. So things like this can help do that. And let me think of anything else. I want to say that that's pretty much the majority of the strategy. So what I'd like to do now is open it up for questions. Hopefully you all will have some questions, especially for like some of these specifics, maybe even on the small business office side. But I think I killed the cat pretty well. So I mean, but you all let me know, and please let's go ahead and open the floor up and see if anyone has any questions. See if we can dive in anything more into more detail. Okay. So Kate, I'll go ahead and go off of you if there are any things. Oh, and if we have a question, we could throw it in the chat, or you can just go ahead and unmute. But Kate, I'll look for you to monitor all that stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to throw it in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever is easiest. I'll keep an eye on the chat to see if any pop up, but feel free to speak.
Yeah. See. All right. So say like Shabazz, right? I'm looking at the chat here. And here, in fact, let me go ahead and stop my share so I can see everyone's face, maybe a little bit better. Okay, so like Shabazz, right? So that, hey, we're a transportation company. We provide these services. Great, right? Imagine you're a small business office, right? And you get like 25 of those a day. That's a lot. I mean, and that is the reality, right, of these small business offices. Now, so put yourself in the small business office, like the actual seat of like, okay, you just got this incoming message. You want to help, like you really do care, right? You want to help, but how do you help? Like, okay, so like you kind of making them like go into it and say, oh, okay, so wait a minute, so transportation. So do we have anything with transportation? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to make them work. And actually, I would say, so Shabazz, right? So every time I think when you're reaching out either to companies or to government offices, whatever it is, I think that it should always be more of a specific, not a general perspective. And this is only coming after like 18 years in the thing, man, and like being on both sides of it, because remember I used to be government as well as as well as private, right? So, but if you can formulate your ask, like in this particular case, right? Of course, I'm just kind of picking on you, because it's there in the chat and it's nice and easy to see, right? But if you can formulate your ask to a very specific thing that differentiates your introduction between everyone else, right? That is going to really help you. Like that, that is really going to set you apart. At the end of the day, remember, it goes back to like, this is a big industry, just like any other industry, right? We are all marketing, we're all selling, we're all trying to build relationships, we're all doing this stuff, right? So if you can do that, for one, you want to be able to do it on scale in a nice, easy way that actually gets the majority of the people you're reaching out to wanting to reach back, right? The way that we do that, make it easy, simple, concise, to the point, while at the same time adding value to whoever it is that you're reaching out to. You see, because all right, so the whole strategy that we just went over here, it was all for government, right? You want to find that government officer, they're out there to help you. This is how to do it. Great. You can formulate or do the exact same strategy, but going to companies, right? So like, this is where you would engage in a platform like teamupro.com ultimately, right? But like, even, like you actually can go to FPDS. I think that might be one of the links in there too, fpds.gov. There's a couple of places where like you would find the companies. Like, you can find who is supporting what government agencies, right? Yeah, it'll take a lot more research on FPDS. It's super fast and easy in TeamyPro. But once you get to that point, the exact same strategy that we just went over here for the government person, it's the exact same reach out strategy that you want to use on the private company side. See, because if we're in a industry that's run by relationships, right? Then you really should, if you want to build your small business, you really should have as many connections as you could possibly have and turn as many of those into relationships as you can possibly do. Okay. And so with that, there are lots of tools and all that other kind of stuff out there. TeamyPro, of course, being the absolute best one of them, I will say, when it comes to finding other companies. But you want to do the same thing. You want to come at them. Put yourself in their seat. If you had someone come at you and say, "Hey, we do blah blah blah," right? Okay. Now, but if someone comes at you and then says, "Hey, we see you got this contract. Looks like an awesome win with the Air Force, right? We have these capabilities. We might even be able to help you on this current one or anything you got coming up in the future. Does it make sense to set up a Zoom call?" That, right? Now, if you're on the receiving end of that, how would you think about that? Like you might have a qualified subcontractor or a small business where like you actually can create a relationship pretty quickly. But the idea is when you go out into the world here, right, you're going out either on the government side or the private side, whatever it is, you want to have your reach out be as concise and on point as possible, to where you're adding as much value and you're taking away as much responsibility that the other person would have to follow through on if they want to help you, right? Like you're trying to take away as much of that stuff as possible and make it to where like all the recipient really has to do is say yes or no, or click this, or you see what I'm saying? It's like nice and easy and professional. You want that. So whether you come at them from the government side or on the private side, that's how you want to handle it. Okay.
I think Monique's got her hand raised.
Yeah, that's okay. I just have a quick thing to say. I have a saying: the government's not going to make it easy for you. You have to make it easy for the government. And it's precisely what Tim's saying. It's relationship building. I will go so far as to say that you should be looking at the pre-acquisition phase. Mm-hmm. And if any of you don't know what that is getting far enough away from what's out, that's been dropped on the streets, that's out on the streets. You want to go build the relationships by one, going after recompeted work, getting in front of the small business office, but also sources sought, because that's the beginning of a possible contract. Mm-hmm. And that's really ghosting those requirements, making sure that they're aware of how you do things, your value. Because if any of you have ever read a solicitation said, it's wired for someone, and it's probably because it is, and it's probably because they responded to that sources sought. So responding to sources sought, requests for information, helping them out, helping that small business office out, building those relationships is key. And also to include that you accept credit cards. It sounds very simple and very, why would I do that? Because, that government threshold for micro purchase threshold has gone up.
10 grand.
And yeah, so putting that on your capability statement, having that capability statement live on your website. It should be, it's akin to a resume. You're honing in on what they're looking for, but also really listen to what they're asking, what they're saying, and maybe not even bringing the capability statement to your meeting, sending it to them later, because as Tim was saying, you have one page. Utilize that landscape, because it's not that you're lying, it's just you're moving things up bullet point wise and elaborating on those things. So that's all I had to say. Good points though, Tim.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Monique. Very, very much for that, because it's 100% true. And we need to build relationships, right? And notice the competition, like everyone has their own little niche. That's kind of what it comes down to. But I would say, please don't rely on that. There's 2 points that I want to make based on what Monique had just said. One, the average time. Okay, so your average connection based on your relationships on the private side are going to last around 3 years. Okay, so business development, I'm talking about the business development, right? Business developers are transient on average. It's where like a business developer will stay with a company on average on the private side 3 years. You have 8 years on the government side. On average, the government person will stay in their position, especially in a contracting officer or that kind of decision-making position, about 8 years. Okay, and so you have more time. So obviously, you want to build up your government connections because they'll be a little bit more long-lasting. But on the private side, yeah, those are somewhat transient. I think you should think of them in that way. Because not everyone sticks around, and so when that recompete comes around 5 years later, you want to make sure that you know somebody, whoever, that you can get on it. The other thing is, oh goodness sakes, I mean, please don't waste your time. I say now, Monique might hit me like right over the head with something on this one, but like I say, don't waste your time on sam.gov other than for sources sought, because I think Monique is 100% right. There's sources sought, extremely important. I actually work with these small business offices on the government side. They're actually starting, well, they want to use our Teaming Pro software in order to reach out to like every woman-owned small business with these capabilities to see, so like they can meet the rule of 2 more often. But that's what they're trying to do with their sources sought. They're trying to meet the rule of 2 to see if they can have it go small business. You want that, right? But beyond that, the acquisition schedules, exactly what Monique was talking about, and what's in the chat for the link here for the acquisition schedules. Those are, most of them are recompete contracts that are coming back around. You want that. The biggest companies, right? None of them work on sam.gov. Like they all only pretty much exclusively work on these recompetes that are coming down throughout, like down the pike. So when a company, and like, this is where they would engage with platforms like from like GovWin and Bloomberg and things of that nature, right? To where they actually would go and find, there's a contract that's most likely going to come out as a recompete, and they'll start working it 2 years before it hits the street. And so when it hits the street, then that's when it goes on SAM. You might have a week or a month or 2 weeks or whatever to put a team together. It's like most likely almost always a losing proposition, because you're competing with companies that have had like a 2-year head start or an 18-month head start. You don't want to do that necessarily. I say you want to get on the teams that are doing that stuff, right? Especially as a small business. Like you might want to seek out those companies who are doing those kinds of things within business development and make friends with them. We see that Monique has her hand up.
I think it was a clap.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, hey, look at that. Okay. Hey, I got some applause. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, you see, so it really narrows down to that. Now, the really good news is a lot of companies out there, and they all want to find you. Everyone wants to find qualified small businesses. Like, I mean, I work with like some of the biggest primes that you can imagine. Like, we have General Dynamics, we have Bell, we have whatever, name it, SAIC. They all do the exact same thing. They all have the exact same need. They really all want to find you. The thing is, and now this is where our software is helping them, because like if you're in the market, you're in our database, and all of these big guys can query and find you based on your capabilities, past performance, all that good stuff, right? So things are at least getting a little bit better, right? But everyone has the exact same need. They all need to find qualified small businesses, and you guys have the same need too. You need to find those good primes, either a major prime or a subprime, or some other companies who are that you can form a relationship with and get on contracts with. Like, you guys want that, of course, right? And so it's all just that. There are lots of ways to find them. Teaming Pro is one way. If you don't want to spend money on it, then like there are a lot of free tools. Please check out fpds.gov if y'all haven't done that yet. The DSBS, Dynamic Small Business Search from the SBA. You can always check out sam.gov. usaspending.gov is a good one. That'll show you who is doing what kind of subcontract work also. And of course, if you want to save a lot of time and money and all that kind of stuff, you can always just come to Teaming Pro. I think, Kate, like, what are we charging? Like $500 a year. You can search everything in one spot, basically, right? And find whoever you want to find, whatever companies you want. That's the most powerful part of the platform for small businesses. Okay. Just one last little plug. Please come and like us and follow us on LinkedIn. We are going to have more articles. So just like what we went over here, we're actually writing more and more and more and more. It's all value-driven stuff. So, okay, so please come and follow us on LinkedIn so you can get those articles like right away. And also, if you ever have any questions, you can reach us at teamingpro.com. All right, appreciate it. Hope you all got value. Hope you all have a great day.
Mind me interrupting, but
No,
I'm compelled to say something here, because when a source of sought comes out, that's the time you should start building your team.
Those sources of sought are powerful, and there is no like acquisition schedule, like the acquisition stuff that like you're talking about, like like all the recompetes, that's different, right? Source of sought is going to be like a piece of work that they actually wanted to come out small business. Well, that's what they're doing, a source of sought, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, all people that I've been working with, I've been doing this since '98. I have built these relationships over the years, and these small business offices, they're like, Monique, I can't find two businesses to rub together. Nobody wants to fill out a source of sought, and it's only going to help them. It's only going to help you. It's getting your name out there. You're helping them, craft that solicitation possibly, and again, it's a great way to really start building your team, finding out who is, has good past performance, who's doing good work. You should know the players in your field. And I can't stress that enough. Really, pre-acquisition phase, recompeted work, building relationships, and, just, doing things properly the right way the first time. But that's all I have to say. This has been very good content. Oh, one other thing. I will say this. Sorry. The source of sought is not under the same regulations as an RFQ or an RFP. If you miss the deadline, you can go ahead and submit it. Go ahead and submit it. Just make sure that you get it to them, because they'll appreciate it. It's what they do, rule of two, and, telling them how to do things in a nice way. It's only going to benefit your business. Thank you.
And I don't think that you're legally obligated also. So like the solution you put into your source of sought is different than the one that you would write up for the RFP, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like you're like they're not going to take you to court and say, well, you said in your source of sought that you could do this for $10, or like, you know what I mean? So of course you don't want to do that, but yeah. So you have more leeway with the source of sought. We actually did have a question coming from Tasha, right? So Tasha, we still have Tasha on the line. I'm not sure, but we ended up, yes. Okay. So multiple capability statements, right? Only after you've been running for a little while. Remember, it all should be manageable from a small business perspective. You start out with one capability statement that really drives home for the niche that you're trying to get the crack in the door to, right? Where it's like, if I were going to start a new federal contracting company today, that's exactly what I would do, is just focus on that first, just one, get in. once you're able to expand your capabilities out, especially if you're able to take your capability, like let's just say that you offer like admin services, or you offer some kind of service that can be spread across agencies, then yes, you want to take all your capabilities, your past performance, things that you can tout, and you do want to separate it out for like the various agencies that you're going after. I would say that that's a couple of years down the line, maybe, right after you get some girth a little bit. But yeah, you should totally do that. And you should have it nice and organized too. This is one of the other things too, being a tech guy for so long, also on the business side, man, please make sure you have a good document repository. Please, you save yourselves the agony. Please don't go through the same thing that I went through, where it's like, I got Google Docs and I got my PC and then I got like SharePoint. Please have a good, clean, clear repository, whatever you want to use. Everything's pretty much secure now. Like, all of the open SSL and all the other kind of protocols are all pretty standard. So anyone that you choose is pretty much going to be good. But if you have Dropbox or some, you want to be able to get to your most recent capability statement without any problem, right? You want to be able to get to your, anything else that you have to help bolster your business. Good repository system is key.
I think she has her hand raised, so I'm going to unmute. I'm not sure what's going on with the mute situation. My apologies.
All right.
Great, thank you. I do have another question because I've never put in for, well, that's not true. I put in for one government contract at the state level, but I couldn't take that because what they wanted to pay was below out of lost money. But I have recently received emails from procurement officers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that normal? They just ask for my information.
Sure.
So what are they looking for, and is that normal?
Small business. Now you're talking about from the government side? Sorry, Tasha, you're muted once again. Right, but from the government side?
No. Yes, I've received 2 from like the government side, the DC SBDC, well, one from DC SBDC and one from another organization. And then I also received one from a college, which was interesting, but I haven't put my information in.
That's okay. All right, so like services like ours, like Teaming Pro, making it a whole lot easier for small businesses to be found. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So please don't be thrown off by something like that. So Teaming Pro, we happen to be the first and the biggest, but we already have players that are looking to swim in our wake, right? So this information here, your small business is going to be more public. It's going to be more shared in terms of data because everyone's trying to find you. So no, it does not surprise me that the procurement offices are trying to contact you directly. Universities and all that stuff, actually, that's very, very, very good, especially if they're an HBCU. Then actually, that's excellent. You want to build up past performance, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. So what you care about is the kind of work, and you care about your partner. Like in this case, if it's someone reputable, of course, you always want reputable. But if it's someone that has like name recognition, that's only going to help you because you're going to sell that stuff, man. Like you're going to put it on your website, you're going to put it on your capability statement, you're going to do all that, and really, really push it, and because you want more of it. So as those procurement officers, and if they're reaching out to you directly, then personally, now from a sales perspective, you want to hop on that within an hour.
Okay.
By the way, don't let it sit for a couple of days. Don't allow that. When you have a lead come in, especially just like that, you should be getting with them within the hour of when you receive that email, and then hop on it.
Right, but they didn't ask for anything specific. They just okay, well.
That's okay. Hey, so they want to get to know you. Great. Hey, let's set up a Zoom call, right? Like that could be what you do within that hour, but capture that. That's a hot lead, right? And a hot lead on the government side or someone that has money to get, hop on it, get it. Use that. Yeah, totally. Every bit of it. Do you have any set-asides? Do you have any small business set-asides, woman-owned or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm micro, small business and women-owned at the state level. I'm in the process of working out with the federal government to get the women's designation?
I will tell you that on the federal side, the only 4 that they care about, and really everyone will give you a little bit of lip service on this here, but please know that this is how it works out. 8A, woman-owned, service-disabled veteran-owned, and hub-zone. Those 4. You could be minority-owned, you could be Black American-owned, you could even be HBCU even, right? Like the big guys don't get the credits for those other certifications, so they don't really care. I mean, it's kind of harsh to say. Everyone cares, right? Because we're all in this together, right? We're all federal contracting. We're making a country stronger. Great, but now they don't get the credits for it, especially. And then even on the state level, like when you're talking to the federal guys, the state stuff is not going to move the needle with them. Focus on the state stuff or the federal stuff with the federal guys. On the state side, I'm sure. Yeah, great, awesome. Like tout that stuff, right? But yeah, when it comes down to the federal side, you just got to know what's important to them. So only those 4. So if you can get woman-owned, you want your woman-owned. By the way, there are about 60,000 out of the 700, whatever, about 60,000 plus women-owned small businesses, right? There used to be 30,000. Like 2 years ago. It's like 60 now. Actually, like 65. We have about 6,400 hub zone companies, not a ton of hub zone companies. We have about 5,000-ish 8A companies, right? And then only a couple of thousand SDVs, probably like 5,000 service disabled veterans, right? So of all the 4, the women-owned have the vast majority of them. There are more of them, okay? So competition level is higher. So you are going to want to tout that, right? But you're really going to need to sell your capabilities and sell ultimately your past performance combined with your set aside designation. Good. Hopefully that answered your question.
It did. It did. So it is normal, and so basically I just have to do a capability statement. But I don't know what they're looking for, so just to give them a general capability statement is basically
just start with the general one. It's okay. You have to have something, right? Make sure it's PDF. Never send a Word doc, especially to anyone within the government. Like everyone is so paranoid about these file extensions and all. Like at least a PDF, it can still be infected from a technological perspective, but it's more rare, right? And so everyone feels a lot more comfy with PDFs, right? But you definitely want a PDF. It doesn't have to be perfect. Please, perfect is the enemy of progress. Please don't wait for it to be perfect. Just have but also, I've actually seen it to where like, we actually produced a capability statement once years ago, like one of my old companies. We forgot to put our contact information on it. Like, all right, hey, you're a great company, you do all great, but how am I going to get back in touch with you? We didn't even have a website, whatever. So you are going to want to make sure you have the basics. Make sure you have the basics. Start with the template. You'll be fine. You'll grow it as you go. It will work. It's good.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Monique has her hand raised,
yes,
and
please.
I hope she is muted.
Am I muted still?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. Forgive me. I just want to I put some things in the comments section, and I just want to let everyone know, if you're a Virginia business, we are funded in part through Virginia Workforce Innovation and Research Center, Entrepreneurship Center rather, and we are a subrecipient of that Hampton grant. Grant that they received in last year through the Trump administration, $18 million grant. Well, long story short, we're a new grant, and we do have money in the coffers to help. It's a reimbursable type thing. You have to be a Virginia business, and you have to have this in your resume. Your business plan rather. That if you want that WeBank, that third-party certification for woman-owned small business, we can reimburse up to $750 on that. If there are any other certifications, we can help with that. A lot of them don't have a cost associated with them, although the minority business enterprise does. We can offset that. We can reimburse that. The caveat is it has to be in your business plan. If it's not, we can work with you. You have to meet with us twice. There is no cost. This is to help businesses that have been affected by COVID. Let's face it, we all have. So I sent the link in the comments section. You can peruse that on our website. and it delineates what is, different certifications or licenses. It could be the cyber maturity model Canvas certification that does the risk assessment. That's for DoD contracts. And we partner with Gen Edge to offset that cost even more, because they pay up to 80% of that through their DoD grant and their Department of Veterans Affairs grant. And we can reimburse up to $1,000. But if there's anything indicative of your business, you just have to run it past us, and I would have to approve it. But it's licenses and certifications. Sorry, I just wanted everyone on the call to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, and Chantel Williams is hoping that you could list that link again. She just has it in the
Sure, I'll do that. I'll do that right now for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And yeah, I was going to say we're a little bit over. So any last thoughts by you, Tim?
Other than this, federal contracting can seem daunting, right? And trust me, I know, I've been through every phase of this, whether you're like working for companies doing plus now also running my own and all that kind of stuff, right? But it really does become a whole lot easier once you start just like focusing in. So and knocking off those little things that we have to have as our, like, think about like a punch list. Like if you're gonna set a goal, like, hey, I'm gonna make a new connection, I'm gonna make 2 new connections this month, stuff like that. Yeah, then ultimately it becomes a little less daunting. It's still like everything we're talking about here is business development, right? So there's getting all that work, getting these contracts, all the great stuff, great. Then you still have, as soon as you get it, now you got to execute, right? So it's like, it's like, yes, this is a very interesting industry, but please know that, like, and seriously, I'm like saying this from someone who has worked with a lot of companies and worked with a lot of agencies on the government side. Everyone loves small business. We need small business. We need more small business. We need more small business winning prime work. So really what we want to help do in places like Monique and and PTACs out there too, everyone, these free resources, of course, we're not free resource, but like you pay like $500 a year, whatever. But like you have resources that will help you do this stuff faster. The stuff you need to do, you're still gonna have to do it, but hopefully you'll be able to do it faster. Get up to that part where like you're winning prime contracts, because we need more small business. We need more competition. If in the beginning of this thing, I don't know if you all remember, but like in that one article is showing that small businesses are winning less and less prime contracts. We need to change that. We need to do whatever we could possibly do to help, reverse the tide on that. We want more small businesses ultimately winning more prime work, which will then bring on more small businesses as more subcontractors and then proliferating over and over and over. So that is one of our biggest pushes here at Teaming Pro. And I know that Monique and then other agencies are doing the exact same concentration. So I'm going to thank Monique and everyone else for coming and joining us. Hopefully you got some value out of this. Kate, I'm all good. Is there anything else you want from me or do you want us to?
No, just thank you everyone for participating. We hope that is helpful. Cool. And we will likely follow up with you afterwards.